In DC, for DC. DC Radio, 96.3 HD4 and DCRadio.gov.
Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the Cannabis Conversations Podcast, which is made possible by Mayor Muriel Bowser, Director of the Office Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment, Angie Gates, and the Director of Radio, Maxx Myrick, and his awesome staff. We discuss everything and anything cannabis on this show with the best in the business locally and nationwide. Cannabis Conversations Podcast is heard daily, Monday through Friday on 96.3 HD4, DCRadio.gov, and SoundCloud. Thank you for being with me today. So I have, today I am doing something I have not done before. So this is an experiment that I hope works. A few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of having Maxx Myrick, who is the director of DC Radio, on my program. Max has been in this industry of radio programming and broadcasting and music events for over 42 years. And he launched and founded the Real Jazz XM70, the first national jazz channel in the United States. And he created a weekly program in the swing with Winter Marsalis. And he became also the program director and air personality and producer for XM Satellite Radio. And something I didn't find out until much later was that he created a 4-hour jazz show for the worldwide United Airlines flights that many of us probably listened to when we were traveling internationally as well. And he was operations manager for WHUR FM here in DC. But Max is a jazz enthusiast, and he's just everything. He's just everything. When it comes to jazz, you can't get any better than a conversation with Maxx Myrick. And so now he's the general manager of DC Radio in the District of Columbia, which, by the way, is the only one of two fully powered, municipally owned and operated stations in the country. So I had Max on, and we just couldn't get through enough of this. And then I had my girlfriend, Mercy Morganfield, on. Mercy is the daughter of Muddy Waters. She's the president of Foxwise Enterprises. Her background is in training, professional training. She was one of the top executives of Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, being awarded as their top trainer for many years. She's on the advisory board of Anacostia Organics. She's a member of the Cannabis Trade Federation's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. She is a Mississippian. It graduated from Jackson State University, magna cum laude, with her degree in Bachelor of Sciences. She received her MA from Goddard College in Transformative Learning. She also headed up as the Vice President of Women's March on Washington. LGW has to get a shout out. She's in the class of 2013, and she is one of the top people in managerial development and human resources in the country, but she's my girlfriend too. So with Mercy being the executive of the state of Muddy Waters as his daughter, and with the Champagne and Reefer background in of her dad's most famous song, one of the most famous songs, I thought I'd bring together the jazz and cannabis and the blues and cannabis all in one set. So I'm honored today to have Mercy Morganfield and Maxx Myrick as my guest. And I'm going to let them roll and talk. Hi, y'all.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for having us, Linda.
It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to meet you.
Honor to meet you too, Max.
I'm a big fan of your dad.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of jazz.
And so, and you know, you can't have one without the other.
Right.
Absolutely. There would be no jazz if it wasn't for the blues.
Right.
Blues is the root of all American popular music. It is the root of all American music.
Period.
Yeah, one of the roots of that American.
Right.
You know that one of the things I have to give to DC and like the Maryland schools is they had a huge program where they were showing the kids what root music is and where it comes from. And I was one of the moderators on that program.
Really? Where was that?
It was out at the Strathmore
Oh,
last year.
really?
And they're teaching, fourth graders. I mean, like I want to say something like 2,000 fourth graders in Maryland went to this program.
I'd love to see them do something like that
That's
in
wonderful.
DC. You know, Max, that's an idea.
That is
I
an
gave
idea.
little kids
For right
harmonicas.
here.
So
You did?
I did. Yeah. So that they
wonderful.
were showing them the roots of American music, which are blues, jazz. Which are blues, gospel, classical music. These are the roots of American music. Period.
Wow, let's go knock on Angie's door, the three of us, when we leave here.
I should. Yeah, that's something that with my dad, he
Yeah.
always asked that we keep the blues alive. Keep the blues alive. When he was very sick, his last days, his mantra was, "Hey, I need y'all to keep the blues alive. Keep the blues alive," because he knows that if we don't tell our own stories,
That's right.
if we don't tell our own stories, they end up being rewritten without us in them. That's why I'm so happy. Shout out to Tyler Perry.
Yes, Tyler.
Because
yes,
this is the
he
beginning of
awesome.
learning to tell our own stories, and having the means and modalities to tell our own stories. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And, oh, wow, that's heavy.
So now we're going to tell the story of what blues and
The blues.
and champagne and reefer and
blues,
jazz
yeah.
and all that good stuff.
All that good stuff. All that good stuff.
Well, so that song, Champagne and Reefer, your dad wrote that song.
Right.
Well, tell us a little bit. I'm going to interview you. Tell us a little bit about that song and how that came about. And
I like to think I had something to do with it, but I probably didn't. He wrote it in 1982. That was the year before he died, and the year that I graduated college.
Get out of here.
So
Wow.
it was, he had definitely, I didn't get in trouble for smoke when he caught me smoking or rolling reefer, if you will. I didn't get in trouble. He thought it was the funniest thing in the whole wide world. And he wasn't a big pot smoker. I think he smoked maybe a few times in his life, but he wasn't Daddy was a champagne man.
That's
we had
my guy.
Right. We
That's
had a
my
champagne
guy.
cellar
Yes,
in the
yes.
basement. He kept the best champagnes. He had it written in his contract that to go on stage, he needed to have his bottle of champagne. So when he came down in 81 to Mississippi, which he did not play in Mississippi, he came down to play for me because I was in college there. He did not go back to Mississippi. He didn't want to go back to a place where he had to come in through the back door, or that he ever had to come in through the back door. It was just not his spot. He did it for me. He came down to the Greenville Blues Festival, and they did not honor his contract. They didn't have his bottle of champagne. Daddy was not a prima donna, but every musician knows that they need something to loosen up before they get up on
yes,
stage.
absolutely.
And his champagne was his thing they bought, and it had to be a certain quality champagne.
Yes.
It couldn't just be Asti Spumante or
Right,
whatever.
exactly.
So, yeah.
So
did
what
they get-
happened?
Did they get
So
champagne?
he sent them. He did not go on stage until he got his champagne, and he sent them
He
back
found it,
out
didn't
to
he?
get the right champagne. And I was standing outside the trailer, and the guy comes out. He slams the door, and he says, "That Muddy Waters. Who does he think he is?"
Muddy Waters.
Muddy Waters. That's exactly who he thinks he
right.
is. He knew who he was.
He's a man, M-A-N.
Yeah.
Spelled M.
Right. There you go. So I was telling you earlier that I was good friends with the Dixon family,
Yes.
who your father
Willie.
had worked with for.
They were our family.
Yeah,
The
part-
Dixon family was our family. Yeah.
And so with being around the blues, see, you're part of the blues. I'm just a fan of the blues.
I'm a baby of the blues.
Baby of the
I
blues.
was born of the blues.
But she was doing some things up there with they purchased Chess Studios,
Studios, mhm.
started the Willie Dixon Blues Heaven Foundation, and their purpose and their mission was to educate and help blues musicians, get their publishing, get medical. They were trying to do something. They her goal before she passed away was to try to do a curriculum with the with Columbia College to make blues part of the curriculum so that future generations would not only know the history of it, but it could be at the same level that jazz is, because jazz has been elevated in the culture, and it's been and she explained to me that for some reason, for some reason, blues has been relegated to folklore versus mainstream, like some of the other genres from which they came. All that music that we like came out of blues. So that was part of our goal. But being around all of that, what was that like?
Well, it was a fun way to grow up. We had a lot of rock and roll people, a lot of soul people, from Gladys Knight, from Millie Jackson to these are all people that was around me when I was a kid.
Right.
And I didn't know them from Adam. I didn't know who they were,
Just
that they were famous.
friends.
They were just daddy's friends.
Yeah.
And blues is very elevated. So I do the Chicago Blues Fest every year, and I sit on the team that chooses people for the Chicago Blues Fest. Chicago Blues Fest is now in Millennial Park in Chicago.
Right.
That's very mainstream, by the way. And what used to be in Grant Park, now it's Millennial Park. And it is the largest free concert
Blues festival
in the world,
right?
Right. And blues hadn't lost any fans.
Right.
They're just not, they just don't look like us.
Right.
Blues fans are routinely white.
And why do you think that is?
Yeah.
Daddy had a theory. I don't really have one, but his was that they associated blues, black people associated blues with slave music. And so for whatever reason, they just saw it as not being, classy enough, or not being that, not having that cachet that jazz has. That's because we don't write our own stories. And we don't realize our roots. Yeah. And we don't understand that it wasn't just music that came from the blues, that sprung from the blues. It was political movements. It was, you name it. It was a song called Champagne and Reefer that way before its time said that reefer is good for your body and good for your head.
Yeah.
They're just now figuring that out with medical studies. But, it was someone who wasn't political, but that basically said there shouldn't be any law about this. And I just want to expand on that a little bit, because
go on.
Last time I was here, you asked me about what brought me into the cannabis industry.
Right.
Number one, it is a growing industry. When have we ever been able to get into an industry from the ground up? Whenever. It's a growing industry. Secondly, it was the fact that that cannabis has been used as a tool to lock so many of us up. Thirdly, it's because I have used cannabis since I was 16 years old. Yeah. I went all the way through college. I graduated magna cum laude. It wasn't some drug for me to go try other drugs. It was a recreational thing. It is a feel-good type of thing. They have this little joke about cannabis and alcohol. Alcoholism, if somebody is drunk, they'll run a red light. If someone is high off cannabis, they'll sit at the stoplight waiting for it to turn green. It's like you don't get. It brings on very different characteristics in people. Yeah. It should never have been criminalized in the first place.
True.
I proudly say that I am a cannabis user. I'm proud of that, because I have to tell you, one of the things we have to stop doing is putting this stigma on this little plant that has been used to lock us up. Yeah. When you put a stigma on it, you give it the same value and power that you give the people who put us in handcuffs and throw us in jail over a joint. The same people who are now getting rich off of this industry. So I think we have to we have to get rid of that. I'm hoping that when I looked up the top cannabis songs,
Yes.
Champagne and Reefer
Champagne and
always
Reefer
comes out
pops
on
up
top.
first.
And I'm just glad to have that as a part of our history too.
Yes, Champagne and Reefer pops
at the
up
top,
first.
right there.
At the top.
Absolutely.
And another one was, wait a minute, Ray Charles was
Let's go get stoned.
Let's go get stoned.
There's a bunch
But
of
there's
them.
a bunch of them. Yeah.
I heard Louis Armstrong smoked a joint every day.
Every day
I
of
don't
his
know.
life.
I can't corroborate that, but I heard
It's
that.
in his autobiography.
Yeah, it's in his order, but
Yes,
Max was
he-
there. He knows.
Well, I don't know if I was there, but I read his
Like Max was like,
autobiography.
I didn't inhale.
No, I'm teasing.
No, but yeah, it's in his book. I mean, he smoked.
Yes, every day.
Every day.
Every
of his
day.
life.
And many artists did.
Let's
Many
stop
artists
acting
did.
like this way of life
That's
is
right.
some odd way
That's
to
right.
be.
That's
Yeah.
right. And we all know throughout the music industry and the entertainment industry and the medical, and I mean, it was everywhere.
The whole reason
spectrum.
that cannabis or reefer or weed was criminalized just had to do with William Randolph Hearst. William Randolph Hearst.
Now, what did he go
Go on and
do? What did he
elaborate.
do?
Well,
Go on and elaborate.
what happened was William Randolph Hearst was a newspaper man.
Mm-hmm.
He owned, and he wanted to convert. Everybody was using hemp because,
Right.
so he wanted to
Yeah.
convert the standard from hemp to paper because he bought all of this forest land. So he worked his influence and created this whole movement in Congress and with politicians, and I don't know if they had lobbyists then, but whatever. And they eventually, they got Hollywood to make this crazy movie, Reefer Madness. They said the jazz musicians were gonna, they were gonna take your daughters, and they were gonna, they make you turn to crime, all this crazy stuff. And then eventually they criminalized it.
Max, they use that line that it's going to make white women like black men. Like that's what it was.
Right,
Like
exactly.
white women go with black men or
Right,
whatever.
right,
I remember them
exactly.
using that
Yeah.
line because that's always this big scare tactic.
Mm-hmm.
But what kills me is our community is still very, very gun shy about, that's the wrong word to use when we talk about our community,
Right.
but they're still very shy about cannabis and embracing the industry because they believed this hype. They believed all this hype. They believe that
we're having
it's a gateway drug.
education. We just heard that recently. I just heard it a couple of days ago. It's a gateway drug, and I mean, it's just everywhere.
Why do you
It's
think
just
why is that myth still being perpetuated? That it's a gateway
lack
drug?
of education.
Because
I think it's truly
the
lack
cannabis
of
industry is coming.
The cannabis industry is here.
Right.
And the gateway drugs are being prescribed by your local physician.
Right.
Exactly.
So let's
It's
keep it real.
Let's keep
Cannabis
it real.
is not
It's
a
the ones
gateway
that you're
drug.
buying at Walgreens and all the other places. Yeah. Opioids. Yeah. The
Right.
one you can travel freely with, the one that people are overdosing and dying, and I mean, just one thing after the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So us being reluctant to be a part of this industry because of some sort of religious belief we held or something that we hold in our mind, some pre-perspective, is actually going to keep a lot of us from making the money that we need to make inside this industry. That's the honesty. That's why I'm open about it now. And let me tell you, when you're open about that, I advocate for cannabis. I embrace the usage of cannabis for health benefits. I embrace the usage of cannabis for recreational benefits. As soon as you say that, you get all kind of secret friends.
Secret friends.
I get people calling me a
Secret friends, that's right.
with the hush tones. You get all kind of secret friends.
Exactly. That's for sure. I'm getting them a lot. But Max and Mercy, how do jazz and jazz and blues intersect? What is the difference? What is the difference between jazz and blues?
I think one was born from the other one.
Jazz was born from the blues.
From the blues. Jazz was born from the blues. Jazz has a lot of other influences. I just saw, I don't know if you got a chance to see this movie by Stanley Nelson. It's about Miles Davis.
Birth of the Cool.
The Birth of the Cool.
I have to watch that.
That's really good.
And so the Birth of Cool was taken from the Smithsonian exhibit too. Not taken from, but they had a Smithsonian exhibit called The Birth of Cool, which Miles and Daddy and a whole bunch of other supposedly cool people in history were there. So when you look at the intersection, and if I say how do they both intersect with cannabis, I think cannabis has created some of the most empowering melodies, some of our best art, some of our best music. Some, all of this was because these cultures are very open-minded. They're very intelligent cultures. History shows that intelligent people are more likely to try recreational drugs because of a curiosity factor, but they're more intelligent. And they were also very much political expressions that we couldn't express openly. We had to express via our music. People tend to think of the blues as sad, down, the dog, ate my car keys type of music. It's not. Blues music was all about sex. Jazz music is all about sex.
Yeah.
So
in fact, I believe the name jazz came from jazz, J-A-S-S, in New Orleans, which meant sex. I mean, that's where that was the origins of that word. Yeah.
Well, I'm just finding that out.
and when you're in Chicago Fest and you're watching these
weird.
people listen to the blues,
Yeah.
and they're white folks, and they start dancing, and the clothes start coming off, I'm like, see, my daddy made a lot of babies.
What I was talking about earlier with the blues, and it's like Miles Davis. We were talking about Miles Davis. Miles Davis, love Miles Davis. Miles Davis changed music 4 or 5 times. But the blues, Miles changed music. The blues changed the world. There would be no rock and roll without the blues. All of those songs that the Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all of those groups, Eric Clapton, they were all your father's music. They were all blues songs. They were blues bands. I mean, that's the truth. So that changed. I mean, that changed the whole world.
And blues was sexy.
Yeah.
I remember when the Rolling Stones showed up at the
Checkerboard.
The Checkerboard in Chicago. I was there that night. You know that thing that's on PBS? I was there that night. I was a kid. I was there, and I know coming into the van on the way over, Daddy was telling us, me and my sister Renee, to behave.
Right.
Yeah, good chance with that. But but we knew that Mick Jagger, because whenever they came into town, they would call us. They would call Daddy's manager, and we're going to be at the You're going to be Muddy's playing at the Checkerboard. We're going to be at the Checkerboard. So I was there that night. Okay, so the Checkerboard was full of smoke. Smoke everywhere.
Really?
It was smoke everywhere. And, you kind of go in the back room. And
Reefer smoke or cigarette smoke?
It was cigarette smoke, because reefer smoke wasn't open. But back in the back rooms, they were smoking reefer, for sure. And Daddy was drinking his champagne.
Yes.
That was champagne and reefer at his best.
Yes.
Daddy goes out on stage, and Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. Keith Richards was the guitar player, so we loved to hear him play.
Yeah.
Go out on stage, and they do their thing. And people are still watching that. That was back in 1981, maybe 80, the year before, like right before I graduated from college.
Yeah.
And people are we still get paid royalties from that.
Yes.
That was such a big moment. And to me, that was, that shows you the impact of the blues.
What happened to his catalog?
I manage it.
Oh, fantastic!
It was never sold. I've
that's
I've actually had some people come to me and say,
so
"Are you
wonderful.
Does the state? There are 8 people in the state. Does the state want to sell Muddy's catalog?" And I said, "If you ever come to me with that, we're not friends, because the only way they'll sell my dad's catalog is if I'm dead and you take my dying finger to sign, because it's not happening. We're not selling Daddy's catalog."
That's really good, and that's very rare.
And we don't take
many
advances either, so that we don't have to sell it.
Yeah. Don't, particularly of people of color and African Americans don't own their catalogs,
Yeah,
and they
publishing.
were so screwed by the uh, um, record executives that they didn't have
And
any
we're still
option to
screwed
it.
by the
Managers,
executives.
Yeah,
still
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Like streaming
but
music screwed a whole lot of us. Just
yeah.
streaming. That they have to figure out another way to kind of take the money that we had become.
Yeah,
They
and
pay percentages
right, the percentages, and
So
I
low.
was telling you that Tamia's dad is Johnny Carter of the Dells, but he was a founding member of the Flamingos. They were all five first cousins, and we get not a penny of royalty from it, and they wrote their songs, and Johnny wrote a lot of the Flamingo songs, but that catalog was sold without them even knowing that the catalog was sold. So
There's supposed to be some kind of legislation that was passed on this recapture
it
thing.
was recap for the I
the
actually
rights to
lobbied on the
reserve
hill for
back.
that.
It was,
yeah.
and it was passed, and we got that. But like before, we had you have people whose they come in to try to say they're helping you, but their main thing that they're trying to do is to get their hands on your catalog.
Right.
And I've just really had to. I keep having to go back to my family and re-talk to them about. Daddy was a sharecropper. He was a sharecropper. That is verisimilitudinous to slavery.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not selling a catalog
Heck no.
where this man plowed the fields and everything.
Yeah.
This was his legacy, and that's what. Your dad doesn't have to be Muddy Waters. It might be your family home. It might be whatever. We have to hang on to our legacy pieces.
That's right.
We tend to give them
That's
up for
right.
cash. Yeah.
And I think that, in our situation, I Only Have Eyes for You is one of the most played songs
Absolutely.
ever
Yeah.
that Johnny co-wrote with his first cousin and sang. And nothing. I mean, zero.
That's
Zero.
horrible.
But we're down to a couple of minutes here to go. This went too fast.
Too fast.
So can we do another part real soon? The next time you, it's because there's just so much to cover here, and I just want to thank you both for coming in. Any parting words? Mercy, how can people contact you? How can people find out more about the Muddy Waters legacy?
So right now we've started the Muddy Waters Foundation.
Okay.
And it's to put blues in schools. So we're focusing very much on curriculum and putting blues in schools to make sure that people understand this history. So we partner with the Blues Foundation, and I sit on the board of directors for the Blues Foundation now. You can get in touch with me, very easy, Mercy Morganfield. .muddywaters@gmail.com.
I love it.
So we're doing a whole lot of blues projects, and also, as you know, Linda, I do a lot of cannabis projects.
Yes.
So please get in touch with me, Mercy Morganfield, .muddywaters@gmail.com.
Thank you so much for being here. And Max, any parting words?
Champagne and reefer.
Champagne and
Indeed.
reefer. Champagne and reefer. That's
Yes.
good. That is my motto. Champagne and reefer. So I want to thank you both for being here today, and I hope that we get to do this again soon. And I hope to see all of you at Anacostia Organics. Please come by. The first medical marijuana dispensary east of the river at 2022 Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, Southeast. And we are on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And for those of you who are listening that do not reside in the District of Columbia, we take all medical marijuana cards from all states in the United States with a medical program. So there's no reason for you not to come. Please tune in again, and thank you. You're the very best. I am just enormously blessed to have Mercy and Max together. Wishing you all my love, and bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for having
you.
us, Linda. Bye-bye.
In DC, for DC, DC Radio, 96.3 HD4, and DCRadio.gov.